The great hall of the Galactic Prosperity Council stretched out like a cathedral made of light and metal. 12 massive seats arranged in a perfect circle dominated the space, each one designed for a different alien species. At the center stood a simple human chair, looking tiny and fragile compared to the towering thrones around it. Ambassador Sarah Chen walked across the polished floor, her footsteps echoing in the silence. She had done this walk many times before, but today felt different. Today felt final. The weight of representing all of humanity pressed down on her shoulders like a physical thing. She reached her chair and turned to face the council. 12 pairs of alien eyes stared back at her, some glowing, some multifaceted, others completely black. The Kethvar representative, Supreme Judge Velthara, rose from her crystalline throne. Her body looked like living metal, and when she spoke, her voice rang like struck silver. Ambassador Chen of the species called human, Velthara began, her words translated instantly by the council's systems. You stand before us to hear the final judgment of your people's application for continued membership in our great civilization. Sarah kept her face calm, though her heart was racing. She had known this day was coming for months. The signs had been clear. Fewer invitations to council meetings, trade agreements mysteriously delayed, and whispered conversations that stopped when humans entered the room. The charges against your species are serious, continued another council member, this one resembling a massive tree with bark-like skin and glowing sap for blood. You have violated the population control accords by allowing unrestricted breeding on 17 worlds. You have ignored the military limitation treaty by building warships beyond your assigned quota. Most disturbing of all, you continue to promote individual freedom over collective harmony. Sarah wanted to laugh at that last charge. Individual freedom, the very thing that made humans special, was being used against them. But she stayed silent and listened. The charges kept coming. Each council member took their turn, listing humanity's crimes against their perfect order. The humans had refused to follow the approved genetic modification protocols. They had developed new technologies without proper oversight. They had formed independent colonies without permission. They had dared to question council decisions. But the real reason for this trial was never spoken aloud. Sarah could see it in their alien faces: fear. Humanity had grown too fast, achieved too much, and asked too many uncomfortable questions. In just 200 years since first contact, humans had gone from primitive planet dwellers to one of the most innovative species in the galaxy. That terrified the council. Have you anything to say in your defense? Asked Velthara. Sarah stood up slowly. She had prepared a speech, pages of carefully crafted words meant to appeal to their sense of fairness. But looking at their faces now, she knew it would be pointless. This trial was just theater. The decision had been made long ago. Yes, she said simply. We came to you in peace. We shared our discoveries, our art, our medicine. We asked only to be treated as equals, not subjects. Equals? The word came from the Zephyrian representative, a creature that looked like living shadow with glowing blue eyes. Your species has existed for less time than some of us spend in meditation. You are children playing with forces you do not understand. Perhaps, Sarah replied. But children grow up. The council members exchanged glances. Some seemed amused by her defiance, others annoyed. Velthara raised one metallic hand for silence. The vote has been taken, she announced. By unanimous decision of the Galactic Prosperity Council, the species known as human is hereby expelled from civilized space. You have 1 solar cycle to withdraw all your people, ships, and installations beyond the quarantine zone. Any human vessel found in council space after that time will be destroyed without warning. Sarah felt something cold settle in her stomach. She had expected this, but hearing it spoken aloud made it real. Humanity was alone again. Furthermore, Velthara continued, all trade agreements are void. All technological exchanges are terminated. All cultural programs are cancelled. The human species will have no contact with civilized space until such time as you have evolved beyond your current primitive state. The other council members nodded their approval. Some actually looked pleased, as if they had just solved a difficult problem. They had no idea what they had just done. Sarah walked to the center of the circle and turned slowly, making eye contact with each council member. When she spoke, her voice was calm and clear, but there was something in it that made several aliens shift uncomfortably in their seats. You call us primitive, she said. You call us dangerous. You fear our independence, our creativity. Our refusal to bow down and accept your version of order." She paused, letting her words sink in. "You mistake our restraint for weakness. We came seeking partnership, but if you demand isolation, so be it." "Are you threatening this council?" asked the tree-like representative, his sap glowing brighter with what might have been anger. Sarah smiled, and it was not a nice smile. "No threat, just a promise. We will remember this day. We will remember who stood with us and who cast us out. You want us gone? We'll go. But someday, when you're facing a crisis that your perfect order cannot solve, remember that you chose to make humanity your enemy instead of your ally." She turned to leave, then stopped and looked back over her shoulder. "Oh, and one more thing. You think you know what humanity is capable of because you've seen us play by your rules. You've never seen what we can do when we write our own." With that, she walked out of the great hall, her footsteps echoing like a countdown. Behind her, the council members sat in uncomfortable silence. They had gotten what they wanted. The troublesome humans were gone. So why did it feel like they had just made a terrible mistake? 3 days later, the last human diplomatic ship left council space. Sarah stood on the bridge watching the stars change as they jumped to hyperspace. Around her, the crew worked quietly, but she could feel their anger and hurt. 200 years of trying to fit in, of following their rules, of proving humanity deserved a place among the stars, all of it wasted. Captain Reynolds, an old friend from the Earth Defense Force, joined her at the window. "Orders from home just came in," he said quietly. "All human ships are to withdraw immediately. All colonies beyond the quarantine zone are being evacuated." Sarah nodded. "Any word from the Outer Rim survey teams?" Reynolds smiled grimly. "Officially, all survey teams have been recalled. Unofficially, I don't think those messages ever reached them." Amazing how unreliable communications can be in deep space. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Even now, humans were being human, finding ways around inconvenient rules. And the hidden research stations? "What research stations?" Reynolds asked innocently. "As far as the council knows, we've been good little children, staying in our assigned space and following all the rules." Sarah laughed for the first time in days. The council thought they knew everything about humanity's activities in the galaxy. They were wrong. Humans had been quietly exploring, building and preparing for decades. The council had just given them permission to stop hiding. As their ship jumped toward human space, Sarah began composing her final report. The council wanted isolation? They would get it. But they had made one crucial error in their calculations. They had given humanity something more dangerous than any weapon: motivation. Time to build without oversight, space to grow without interference, and a very clear enemy to unite against. The humans were going home, but they wouldn't be staying there for long. 5 years had passed since the banishment, and the galaxy seemed peaceful. Council trade routes hummed with activity, alien merchants prospered under the familiar rules, and the 12 ruling species congratulated themselves on solving the human problem. Most had forgotten about Earth entirely, dismissing humanity as another failed species that couldn't adapt to civilized life. They were catastrophically wrong. Admiral Marcus Webb stood in the command center of Forge Station, watching the construction yards through reinforced windows. Massive ships took shape in the darkness of space, their hulls gleaming under the light of the dying red star that hid their operations. The station itself was built inside a hollowed-out asteroid, invisible to anyone who didn't know exactly where to look. "Sir, the morning reports," said Lieutenant Commander Torres, handing him a data pad. Marcus scanned the numbers and allowed himself a satisfied smile. Production was ahead of schedule on all fronts. Forge Station was just one of 47 similar installations scattered throughout the galactic rim. The council had been right about one thing. This region was harsh and seemingly worthless. The stars were old and dying, the planets were mostly barren rock, and the asteroid fields were sparse compared to the rich inner systems. But humans saw opportunity where others saw wasteland. Those dying stars provided perfect cover for hidden bases. The barren planets were rich in rare minerals that the Council had never bothered to survey properly. And the sparse asteroid fields meant less competition for resources. "Any word from the survey teams?" Marcus asked. "Deep Range 7 reported in this morning," Torres replied. "They found another gold mine, literally. An entire system of dead worlds with exposed mineral veins. No signs of previous alien activity." Marcus nodded. The galaxy was vast, and the Council's influence only reached so far. Beyond their borders lay millions of unexplored systems, unclaimed worlds, and resources beyond counting. While the Council grew fat and complacent in their established territories, humanity was mapping the unknown. A soft chime indicated an incoming message from Earth. Marcus activated the secure channel and found himself face-to-face with President Martinez, broadcasting from the new capital on Luna. "Admiral," the president said without preamble, "Project Renaissance just hit another milestone. Dr. Vasquez wants to show you something." The image shifted and Marcus found himself looking at Dr. Elena Vasquez in her laboratory. Behind her, he could see strange machinery that seemed to bend the light around it. "Marcus, you need to see this," Elena said, her excitement obvious. "We've cracked quantum tunnel drive." Marcus felt his pulse quicken. Faster than light travel had always been humanity's weakness compared to other species. Council ships could cross the galaxy in days while human vessels took weeks. "How much faster?" "Try 1,000% improvement over our old drives and 50% faster than anything the Council has." Elena grinned. "But that's not the best part. Watch this." She activated a small device on her workbench. Marcus watched in amazement as the machine seemed to fold in on itself, disappearing from view while still clearly being there. He could see its outline, like a heat shimmer in the air. "Quantum phase shifting," Elena explained. "The ship exists in normal space but slightly out of phase. Council sensors can't detect it, weapons can't lock onto it, and it can pass through solid matter. We've essentially created ghost ships." Marcus stared at the invisible device. "How long until we can install this on our ships?" "The first prototype vessels are already being fitted. We should have a full squadron ready for testing within 6 months." The president's image returned. "Admiral, I'm authorizing the next phase of the plan. It's time to make contact with the Forgotten." Marcus had been hoping for those orders. The Forgotten were the galaxy's outcasts, species that had been conquered, banished, or enslaved by the Council over the millennia. Most had been scattered to the far reaches of space, struggling to survive in the same harsh conditions that humans now called home. "The Vorthak have already responded to our initial communications," the president continued. "They're interested in an alliance. The Luminar energy beings have been more cautious, but they're listening. As for the others, we'll find them," Marcus promised. "And when we do, they'll have a choice. Unite with us or watch the Council dominate the galaxy forever." After the call ended, Marcus walked through Forge Station's corridors. The place buzzed with activity as thousands of humans worked around the clock. Engineers designed new weapon systems, scientists pushed the boundaries of physics, and workers assembled the tools of war. But it wasn't just war they were preparing for. In the civilian sections, families lived and children played. Schools taught not just Council-approved subjects but human history, art, and philosophy. Gardens grew food crops from Earth alongside alien plants discovered in their explorations. This wasn't just a military base. It was a new world, a piece of humanity transplanted to the stars. Marcus stopped at one of the observation lounges where off-duty personnel relaxed. Through the windows, he could see the construction yards where their latest creation was taking shape. The ship was massive, easily 3 times the size of the largest Council vessel he'd ever seen. But size wasn't its most impressive feature. "Beautiful, isn't she?" said Chief Engineer Park, joining him at the window. "What are you calling her?" Marcus asked, U.S. Prometheus. "She's not just a warship, Admiral. She's a mobile city. 10,000 people can live on that ship indefinitely. She has her own manufacturing plants, research labs, hydroponic farms, even schools and hospitals. Everything needed to establish a new colony." Marcus nodded approvingly. This was the human way, not just to fight, but to build. Not just to conquer, but to create something better. "And the weapons?" he asked. Park's grin turned predatory. "Let's just say she could take on the entire Council home fleet and ask for seconds. The new plasma cannons can punch through any known shielding, and the adaptive AI systems learn from every battle. Plus, with the new quantum drives, she can appear anywhere in the galaxy without warning." A new message alert drew Marcus's attention. This one was from one of the deep space monitoring stations. He read it quickly, then read it again more slowly. "Sir?" Torres asked, noticing his expression. "Council merchant vessel, 3 parsecs from our position," Marcus said. "They're broadcasting standard trade route beacons. Probably just passing through. Orders?" Marcus thought for a moment. For 5 years, humanity had stayed hidden, building their strength in secret, but they couldn't hide forever. Eventually, they would have to announce their return to galactic affairs. and when they did, it needed to send the right message. "Prep a contact team," he said finally. "It's time the galaxy learned that humanity didn't just survive their banishment. We thrived." He turned back to the window where the Prometheus continued to take shape. Very soon, that ship would carry humanity's message back to the stars. The Council had wanted them gone, and for 5 years they had been absent. But absence had given them time to grow, to learn, to build something the galaxy had never seen before. The humans were coming back, and they were bringing friends. In her laboratory, Dr. Vasquez was already working on the next breakthrough. The quantum drive was just the beginning. She had teams working on adaptive armor that learned from damage, weapons that grew stronger with each use, and AI systems that didn't just follow orders but anticipated needs. The Council thought they had banished a primitive species. They were about to discover they had created something far more dangerous, a motivated enemy with unlimited time to prepare. And now that preparation was almost complete, the galaxy was about to change whether it wanted to or not. Fleet Commander Zarthul of the Kethvar had been patrolling the same trade routes for 30 years. It was boring work, but necessary. Pirates occasionally raided merchant vessels, and sometimes primitive species tried to steal technology they couldn't understand. His 3 destroyers were more than enough to handle any trouble in this quiet sector. That's why the sensor readings made no sense. "Commander," his sensor operator called out, her metallic voice tight with confusion. "We have a contact. Large vessel, unknown configuration. Energy signature is strange." Zarthul moved to the sensor station, his crystalline body clicking against the deck plates. The display showed a ship unlike anything in their databases. It was huge, easily twice the size of his flagship, with smooth curves that seemed to flow like liquid metal. "Origin?" he asked. "Unknown, sir. The design doesn't match any known species. But the energy patterns..." The operator paused, checking her readings again. "Sir, I'm detecting quantum tunneling residue. This ship just came out of FTL. In the middle of nowhere?" Zarthul studied the display. This sector was empty space, light years from any inhabited system. No one traveled here except Council patrol ships and the occasional merchant convoy. "Send a standard identification request," he ordered. "If they don't respond, we'll board them." The response came back immediately, but it wasn't what anyone expected. Instead of the formal Council protocols they were used to, they received a simple message in perfect galactic standard. "Greetings, Kethvar vessels. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Prometheus. We request permission to come alongside for diplomatic discussions." The bridge fell silent. Earth? The humans had been banished 5 years ago. Everyone knew they had retreated to their home system and were slowly dying out without access to galactic technology and trade. "Sir," the communications officer said quietly, "they're transmitting on all Council diplomatic frequencies. They know our protocols." Zarthul felt something he hadn't experienced in decades: uncertainty. His orders were clear regarding human vessels: destroy on sight. But this ship was massive, and it had appeared in the middle of his patrol route without warning. That suggested technology far beyond what humans had possessed 5 years ago. "Tactical assessment," he ordered. "Unknown weapon systems, but I'm reading massive energy buildups throughout their hull," his weapons officer reported. "Sir, their power output is off the charts. It's like they're running a small star in there." "They're moving," the sensor operator announced, "closing to optimal communication range." Zarthul watched the alien ship approach. As it grew larger on the main screen, he could see details that made his confusion worse. The hull was seamless, like it had been grown rather than built. Lights moved beneath the surface in patterns that seemed almost alive, and it was beautiful in a way that Kethvar engineering had never achieved. "Incoming message," communications reported. "They're requesting to open a channel. Put them through." The main screen flickered, and Zarthul found himself looking at a human face. The alien, Captain Morrison, looked remarkably calm for someone facing 3 Council warships. "Commander Zarthul," Morrison said, somehow knowing his name despite never having met. "Thank you for accepting our communication. I believe we have much to discuss." "You are in violation of Council space," Zarthul replied, falling back on standard protocol. "Humans are banned from this region." "Surrender your vessel for impound." Morrison smiled, and it wasn't entirely friendly. "I'm afraid that's not going to happen, Commander. You see, things have changed in the last 5 years. We're not the same species you banished." "You're still human," Zarthul said. "Still subject to Council law, are we?" Morrison asked. "Tell me, Commander, When was the last time the Council updated their star charts for this region? The question caught Zarthul off guard. What does that matter? Because if they had, they would know that 17 systems in this sector are now under human protection. We've been busy while you thought we were hiding. Before Zarthul could respond, his sensor operator spoke up urgently. Sir, we have multiple contacts appearing on long-range sensors. Ships, lots of them, all around us. The tactical display lit up with new contacts. Human ships, dozens of them, materializing out of seemingly empty space. They had been there all along, invisible to Council sensors until they chose to reveal themselves. As you can see, Morrison continued calmly, you're somewhat outnumbered, but don't worry, we're not here to fight today. We're here to deliver a message. And what message? Zarthul asked, though he was beginning to suspect he already knew. That humanity is back. We've spent 5 years building, growing, and preparing. The Council wanted us out of their sight, and we obliged. But we never said we were staying out of the galaxy. Morrison stood up, and Zarthul could see behind him what looked like a city street with humans walking calmly about their business. This wasn't just a warship. It was a floating city. We're not asking for permission to return, Morrison said. We're informing you that we're here. This sector, and several others like it, are now under human protection. Any species seeking freedom from Council oppression is welcome to join us. The Council will never allow this, Zarthul said. The Council can try to stop us, Morrison replied. But I should mention that the Vorthak have already joined our alliance. So have the Luminar and the Crystalline Collective. All those species the Council conquered or enslaved over the centuries. They remember. And they're angry. As if summoned by his words, new contacts appeared on the sensors. Ships that looked like living insects, Vorthak design. Beings of pure energy that registered as mobile stars, the Luminar. And geometric crystal ships that sang with harmonic frequencies, the Collective. This is impossible, Zarthul whispered. These species were scattered, broken. They were, Morrison agreed. Until humanity gave them something they had lost, hope. And more importantly, the technology and resources to fight back. The display showed detailed scans of the human ship. The computer was identifying technologies that shouldn't exist, quantum phase shields, adaptive AI systems, weapons that seemed to bend space itself. In 5 years, humanity had somehow leaped centuries ahead in development. How? Zarthul asked. Morrison's smile became genuinely friendly. That's the beautiful thing about humans, Commander. Tell us we can't do something, and we'll find a way to do it better than anyone thought possible. Ban us from the galaxy and we'll build our own. Commander, his tactical officer said urgently, I'm reading massive energy spikes from all the human vessels. They're powering weapons. Relax, Morrison said, apparently having heard. We're not going to hurt you. Consider this a demonstration. Computer, fire a warning shot. One of the smaller human ships fired a single beam at a nearby asteroid. The rock, easily a kilometer wide, simply ceased to exist. No explosion, no debris, it was just gone. Quantum dissolution beam, Morrison explained casually. We developed it last year. Very clean, very efficient. The asteroid was converted directly to energy and dispersed harmlessly. Zarthul stared at the empty space where the asteroid had been. That level of firepower was beyond anything in the Council arsenal. I suggest you report back to the Council, Morrison said. Tell them that humanity has returned to galactic affairs. We're not seeking membership in their little club. We're building our own. Species that value freedom, innovation, and cooperation are welcome to join the human commonwealth. This will mean war, Zarthul said. Only if the Council chooses war, Morrison replied. We'd prefer peaceful coexistence, but if they decide to attack us, he shrugged. Well, they'll discover what humans are really capable of when we're not trying to play by their rules. The human ships began to fade from sensors, activating their phase shift technology. Within minutes, only the Prometheus remained visible. Give the Council a message from Captain Jake Morrison, Morrison said. Humanity thanks them for their banishment. It gave us exactly what we needed. Motivation, time, and freedom from their restrictions. We couldn't have done this if we'd remained under their oversight. The transmission ended and the Prometheus began to move away. As it reached the edge of sensor range, it simply vanished, leaving no trace it had ever been there. Zarthul stood on his bridge, staring at empty space. His 3 destroyers, pride of the Kethvar fleet, suddenly felt very small and very vulnerable. Around him, his crew worked in shocked silence. "Set course for Council space," he ordered finally. "Maximum speed." As they jumped to hyperspace, Zarthul began composing his report. The Council needed to know that their greatest fear had come true. The humans were back, and they had not returned alone. Admiral Veltar stood on the bridge of the Council flagship Eternal Dominion, watching the massive fleet assemble around her. Ships from all 12 Council species filled the space around the rally point. Kethvar destroyers, Zephyrian stealth cruisers, Corallian living ships, and more. It was the largest military force assembled in over 1,000 years. The target was the Kepler system, humanity's first major settlement beyond the quarantine zone. Intelligence reports indicated a colony of nearly 2 million humans, protected by orbital defense platforms and a small fleet. It should have been an easy victory, overwhelming force against primitive refugees. But Fleet Commander Zarthul's report had changed everything. The humans weren't hiding in broken ships, struggling to survive. They had advanced technology, powerful allies, and weapons that could destroy asteroids with a single shot. The Council had decided that humanity needed to be crushed before they could spread their influence further. "Admiral," her aide reported, "all fleets are in position. We have 800 vessels ready for the assault." Veltar nodded grimly. 800 ships against whatever the humans could field. It should be enough. But as they dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system, what they found defied all expectations. The system was a fortress. Massive space stations orbited the main planet, bristling with weapons that looked nothing like standard galactic technology. The stations were connected by what appeared to be solid energy beams, creating a web of defenses around the world. And floating in perfect formation around the planet were human warships. "Tactical count," Veltar ordered. 47 human vessels, Admiral, but they're large. Some of them are bigger than our dreadnoughts. On the main screen, Veltar could see the human fleet clearly. The ships were beautiful in an alien way, their hulls flowing like water but obviously made of metal. They didn't look built so much as grown, and they moved with a grace that made her own vessels seem clumsy by comparison. "They're hailing us," communications reported. "Put them through." The screen filled with a human face, a woman this time wearing what looked like military insignia but in no style Veltar recognized. "Admiral Veltar," the human said, somehow knowing her name. "I'm Admiral Sarah Chen, formerly ambassador to the Council. Welcome to the Kepler system." Veltar felt a chill. She knew that name from the files. Sarah Chen had been the human who delivered that final warning 5 years ago in the Council chambers. "You are in violation of Council space," Veltar said formally. "Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Chen smiled sadly. "Council space? Admiral, you're currently in the sovereign territory of the human Commonwealth. You're the ones who are trespassing." "Impossible. This system was uninhabited when your species was banished. 5 years ago, yes. Today it's home to 4 million people. Humans, Vorthak, Luminar, and several other species that have joined our Commonwealth. They have children here, Admiral. They have homes, schools, art galleries, and gardens. Are you really going to attack families because they chose freedom over oppression?" Before Veltar could respond, her sensor operator called out urgently, "Admiral, we have massive contacts appearing throughout the system. Unknown vessels, hundreds of them." The tactical display exploded with new contacts. Ships were materializing out of nowhere. Some insectoid and organic-looking, others appearing to be made of pure crystal, and still others that registered as mobile energy patterns. "The Forgotten," Chen said simply. "Every species the Council has conquered, enslaved, or banished over the last millennium. They've been waiting for this day." Veltar stared at the display in horror. Her 800 ships were now facing over 2,000 vessels of unknown capability. "Last chance, Admiral," Chen said. "Withdraw peacefully, and we'll consider this a misunderstanding. Attack us and you'll discover why the galaxy fears humanity. The Council does not fear primitives," Veltar replied, though her voice lacked conviction. "Then let me show you how primitive we are," Chen said. "All ships implement Protocol 7. Around the planet, the human orbital stations began to glow. Energy flowed along the connecting beams, and suddenly the entire defensive grid lit up like a star. The space around Kepler became a web of deadly energy that made conventional shields useless. "Those platforms are networked," Veltar's tactical officer reported with amazement. "They're sharing power and targeting data. It's like they're all part of one massive weapon system. Fire a warning shot, Veltar ordered. Target one of their outer platforms. Her flagship's main cannon fired, sending a plasma bolt toward the nearest human station. The bolt never reached its target. Instead, it struck the energy web and was absorbed, the power flowing along the connecting beams and making the entire grid stronger. They're feeding on our weapons fire, the tactical officer said in disbelief. On the planet's surface, Colonel Maria Santos was coordinating the ground defenses. She stood in the command center of New Sarajevo, the colony's capital city, watching the orbital battle through the tactical displays. "Ma'am, Council landing forces are attempting to breach the orbital defenses," her aide reported. "Let them come," Maria replied grimly. "We've been preparing for this." The first Council dropships made it through the energy web, but they found the planet's surface as heavily defended as the orbital space. Human Marines in adaptive armor fought alongside Vorthak warriors and Luminar energy beings. The Council's robotic shock troops, designed to crush resistance through overwhelming force, found themselves facing an enemy that adapted to their tactics in real time. In the underground command bunkers, human AI systems analyzed every enemy move and instantly updated the defensive algorithms. Weapons that fired conventional projectiles were met with phase shift armor. Energy weapons were absorbed and redirected. Chemical attacks were neutralized by environmental suits that cleaned themselves. But more than the technology, it was the spirit of the defenders that stunned the Council forces. These weren't soldiers fighting for conquest or duty. They were families protecting their homes. Every street became a fortress, every building a stronghold. "Report from the surface," Maria's aide called out. "Council forces have taken 15% casualties and haven't advanced more than a kilometer from any landing zone." Back in orbit, Admiral Veltar was discovering that her overwhelming force advantage meant nothing against an enemy that fought unlike anything in Council military doctrine. "Admiral," her sensor operator shouted, "the human ships, and they're doing something impossible. They're changing." On the main screen, Veltar watched in fascination and horror as the human vessels began to transform. Hulls flowed like liquid. Weapons emerged from hidden ports, and ships actually split apart and recombined in new configurations. What had been 47 vessels became hundreds of smaller, faster ships that swarmed through her formation like angry insects. "Adaptive technology," Chen's voice came through the communication system. "Every battle teaches our ships how to fight better. Every weapon you fire gives our AI systems new data to work with. You're not just fighting us, Admiral. You're training us." The human swarm ships moved through the Council formation, not trying to destroy the larger vessels but targeting their weapons and engines with surgical precision. Within minutes, dozens of Council ships were dead in space, helpless but unharmed. "This is impossible," Veltar whispered. "No species advances this fast. No species has ever been given 5 years of complete freedom to develop without restrictions," Chen replied. "Thank the Council for that gift." Then the Forgotten joined the battle. Vorthak ships moved like living creatures, swarming around Council vessels and tearing them apart with weapons that seemed to eat metal. Luminar energy beings simply passed through Council shields and disabled ships from the inside. Crystal ships sang harmonic frequencies that shattered enemy hulls at the molecular level. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the Council fleet was in ruins. Not destroyed. The humans and their allies had been careful to disable rather than kill, but completely defeated. Admiral Veltar found herself standing on the bridge of her powerless flagship, surrounded by human officers who had somehow boarded without triggering any alarms. "Admiral," Sarah Chen said, materializing on the bridge as if she had been there all along. "I believe we need to discuss terms." Veltar looked around at her captors. They were treating her crew with respect, providing medical aid to the wounded and ensuring the disabled ships had life support. Even in victory, the humans showed mercy. "What do you want?" she asked. "For you to deliver a message to the Council," Chen replied. "Tell them that the Commonwealth is not interested in conquest. We want peaceful coexistence, but if they insist on war, they'll discover that banishing humanity was the worst strategic mistake in galactic history. They'll never accept your terms," Veltar said. Chen smiled sadly. "Then they'll learn the hard way that humans don't fight wars to win battles. We fight wars to win the peace that comes after." As the defeated Council fleet limped away from Kepler, carrying news of their humiliation, the human commonwealth continued to grow. Species across the galaxy heard the news and began to hope. The Council's iron grip on galactic civilization was finally beginning to crack. President Elena Vasquez stood at the window of her office aboard Geneva Station, watching the impossible scene outside. Ships from hundreds of different species filled the space around humanity's new capital, their diverse designs creating a tapestry of cultures that had never been seen before in galactic history. 1 year had passed since the Battle of Kepler, and the galaxy had transformed beyond recognition. The Council's authority crumbled as species after species declared independence, often seeking protection under the Commonwealth's growing umbrella. What had started as humanity's banishment had become the foundation of a new galactic order. "Madam President," her aide announced, "the Council delegation has arrived." Elena turned from the window, straightening her diplomatic robes. Today would determine the future of galactic civilization. After months of negotiations, the remaining Council members had finally agreed to meet and discuss terms. Not surrender, they were too proud for that, but something close to it. The conference room was a masterpiece of human engineering and alien artistry. The table was grown from living Corallian coral, shaped by crystalline harmonic resonance and powered by luminar energy beings. It represented everything the new Commonwealth stood for, different species working together to create something beautiful. As Elena entered, she saw the Council delegates already seated. They looked smaller somehow, diminished by recent events. Supreme Judge Velthara of the Kethvar sat rigid in her crystalline chair, her metallic face unreadable. Beside her, the tree-like Verdanian representative's sap glowed dimly with what might have been resignation. The other Council members looked equally defeated. "Thank you for coming," Elena said, taking her seat at the head of the table. "I know this wasn't an easy decision." "We had little choice," Velthara replied coldly. "Half our member species have joined your Commonwealth. The others are in open rebellion. You've destroyed everything we built." "We've freed everything you imprisoned," Elena corrected gently. "The Council ruled through fear and oppression for 1,000 years. We're offering something different. Cooperation based on respect and mutual benefit." "Pretty words," said the Zephyrian delegate, his shadow form rippling with anger. "But you've conquered our territory through military force. How is that different from what you accuse us of doing?" Elena smiled sadly. "Because we're not keeping it. Every system that has joined the Commonwealth did so voluntarily. Every species that serves in our fleet chose to be here, and today I'm going to offer you the same choice." She activated a holographic display that showed the current state of the galaxy. The old Council territories were a patchwork of independent systems, Commonwealth protectorates, and the few remaining loyal Council worlds. "The Commonwealth doesn't want to rule the galaxy," Elena continued. "We want to create a framework where every species can thrive according to their own values and beliefs. Some prefer the structure and order that the Council provided. Others value the freedom and innovation that we offer. Both approaches have merit." "What are you proposing?" asked the aquatic delegate, her translated voice carrying notes of curiosity. Elena stood and walked to the display. "A new galactic constitution. Multiple coexisting governments, each serving the needs of their member species. The Council can continue to exist for those worlds that prefer traditional order. The Commonwealth will protect those who choose freedom and innovation, and there will be neutral zones for species that want neither system." "And if our territories overlap?" Velthara asked suspiciously. "Then we negotiate like civilized beings," Elena replied. "We establish trade agreements, cultural exchange programs, and mutual defense pacts. We compete through innovation and diplomacy, not conquest and oppression." The Council delegates exchanged glances. It wasn't what they had expected. They had come prepared for surrender terms, not partnership offers. "Why?" the Verdanian asked finally. "You have the power to destroy us completely. Why offer this?" Elena returned to her seat and thought carefully before answering. "Because humanity learned something during our exile. True strength doesn't come from dominating others. It comes from inspiring them to be their best selves. We want the galaxy to thrive, not just survive." She activated another display, this one showing production statistics, scientific discoveries, and cultural achievements. In just 1 year, Commonwealth systems have increased their scientific output by 300%. Art and literature are flourishing. New technologies are being developed faster than ever before. And it's not just humans doing this, it's every species working together. The Vorthak have developed new medical techniques that extend life for all oxygen-breathing species, she continued. The Luminar have shared energy manipulation methods that could solve the galaxy's power needs forever. The Crystalline Collective's harmonic technologies are revolutionizing communications. This is what cooperation looks like. One of the newer council members, representing a species that had only recently achieved spaceflight before being absorbed into the council system, spoke up hesitantly. What about species like ours? We don't have advanced technology or ancient wisdom. What can we contribute? Elena's smile was warm and genuine. Every species has something unique to offer. Your people are natural artists. The sculptures I've seen from your worlds are incredible. Art isn't just decoration. It's how we share our souls with each other. The Commonwealth needs artists as much as it needs scientists and warriors. And if we choose to remain with the Council? Velthara asked. Then you remain with the Council, Elena said simply. We won't force anyone to join us. But we also won't allow the Council to force anyone to stay. That's the fundamental difference between our systems. Choice. The negotiations continued for hours. Maps were redrawn, territories reassigned, and new frameworks established. Some species chose to remain with the reformed council, which would now operate under strict limitations on their authority. Others joined the Commonwealth immediately. A few declared independence from both systems, choosing to forge their own paths. When the formal agreements were signed, Elena felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The galaxy was finally free to determine its own destiny. As the council delegates prepared to leave, Velthara approached Elena privately. I still don't understand, she said. You could have destroyed us. Why show mercy? Elena looked out the window at the diverse fleet surrounding the station. Because mercy isn't weakness, it's strength under control. Humanity was shown no mercy when we needed it most. But that taught us something valuable. The galaxy doesn't need more conquerors. It needs gardeners. Gardeners? People who plant seeds and tend them until they grow into something beautiful, Elena explained. The council tried to prune the galaxy into a perfect shape, cutting away anything that didn't fit their vision. We're trying to create an environment where everything can grow according to its own nature. 3 months later, Elena stood in the same office. But the view outside had changed again. The station was expanding, with new sections being added by different species using their unique architectural styles. It was chaotic and beautiful, a living symbol of what the galaxy could become when beings worked together instead of against each other. Ambassador Sarah Chen, now Secretary of Interspecies Relations, joined her at the window. The first Council Commonwealth Joint Scientific Expedition departs next week, she reported. They're investigating some unusual energy readings in the Andromeda approach. Both governments are contributing ships and personnel. Elena nodded approvingly. Any problems with integration? Surprisingly few. Turns out that when you're exploring the unknown, species differences matter less than curiosity and courage. And the former council worlds that chose independence? Thriving mostly. A few are struggling with the transition to self-governance, but we've offered technical assistance when requested. No military intervention, just advice and resources. Elena smiled at that. It would have been easy to let the struggling worlds fail, proving that they needed the Commonwealth's protection. But that would have been the old way of thinking, proving superiority through others' failures. The Commonwealth's strength came from helping everyone succeed. Ma'am, Sarah said quietly, sometimes I think about that day in the council chambers. When they banished us, they thought they were getting rid of a problem. Instead, they created the solution to problems they didn't even know they had. Elena laughed. Humanity's greatest talent has always been turning disadvantages into advantages. They gave us exile, and we used it to build something better than what we left behind. Outside the window, a new ship arrived at the station. It was a hybrid design, clearly built by multiple species working together. The hull showed Kethvar engineering precision, Vorthak biological integration, and human adaptive systems. It was beautiful in a way that no single species could have achieved alone. The galaxy learned something important, Elena said, watching the ship dock. You don't exile humanity, you just give them room to build something that makes exile irrelevant. As the day cycle dimmed around Geneva Station, Elena reflected on how much had changed. 5 years ago, humanity had been cast out of galactic civilization. considered too dangerous and unpredictable to be trusted. Today,